Ooh, that looks tasty.
Well, it's been a fun existence, but someone tripped over a coolant cord in the core, and the planet we've called home for eons is going to explode. Sadly, the Great Alien Council never considered this possibility. Looks like we're gonna have to use our wits and every means at our disposal to escape. Now, let's lift off and get me off this planet! Welcome, folks. Today, the Hungry Gamer is back with another Kickstarter preview. And today, we are talking about Liftoff, Get Me Off This Planet, the expanded deluxe edition by Pencil First Games, designed by Eduardo Baraf, with art by Nicole Kelly. Now, before I go any further, a couple of things. First, please make sure you turn on your Klingon subtitles, because if I make any mistakes in my explanation, that is where you will find the corrections. Also, the first reminder, this is a prototype version. There may be changes to the components, there may be changes to some of the gameplay as far as how specific things work, how they interact. And there are also a few things included in the preview copy that I have that are actually being tested out and may or may not wind up in the final Kickstarter version of the game, as Eduardo is literally still just seeing how they work, if they're balanced, and all of that. Liftoff is a reprint of one of Pencil First's first games. And of course, they've added some things and they've updated the rules, added a solo play, and so on and so forth. The purpose of the game is to get all of your aliens off the planet before it explodes. Very, very simple. Now, if you could not care less about how you get said aliens off the planet, then you're going to want to jump ahead to the timestamp that's on the screen right now. For those of us who are still here, let me do a quick rundown of how this game works. So what you see in front of you are, I have this game set up for 2 players. Each player starts with 2 cards. They have their escape pod, which is where they will put their aliens as they escape. We have the stack of extra cards here. We have 10 aliens of each color, these little extraterrestrials here, which are adorable. We have the Beast, the Garglor here, and they all start in the core of the planet. Then we have 4 exit points, which get you from the core of the planet to the surface. I will say on the reverse side of these, there is a more advanced version where you have to do stuff to actually get to the surface, but I'm not showing you that right now. And we have 4 liftoff points, and this is how you actually will get off the planet. For the first game, it recommends that you start with a bonfire, a satellite, a jetpack, and a rocket. However, there is another liftoff point on the reverse side of each one of these, and I also have all of these here, which are also all double-sided. The game is very simple. Each player will take their turn. On their turn, they are simply going to move their alien, which means they can move 1 alien twice or move 2 aliens once. They can play their action cards. They can pay liftoff costs, and they can trade in 2 cards for 1. And then the moon will move, and they draw 2 cards to end their turn. That is it. Now, by the moon moving, what I mean is at the end of each player's turn, the moon, which is up here, literally moves, like so. And it will go around the planet, and each time it gets back to the star, we have advanced 1 day, and we move our sun down 1 day closer to the explosion of the planet. I will say now that you set the game to the number of days equal to the number of players. So if you're playing solo, you start right here, 2 players here, 6 players there. We can all count. We get the idea. What's important about the way this game works is you are trying to lift off of the planet on these different liftoff points. But in order to do so, you have to pay certain costs to prepare the liftoff point, and then you have to pay more costs to actually leave the planet. So I'm going to just go ahead and pull up one of them right here. I'm pulling up the rocket, and so over here, this is the cost for each alien to get on to the liftoff point. and you have to pay 1 fuel and 1 screw, which are the types of cards that you may get. You'll see I have a wild card here and I have a screw. And so if I want one of my aliens to get on this liftoff point, I have to pay both of those. And I'm going to explain and show you how a turn might work, but just to make you understand now. So once I move to this spot, I can be chilling out here at the site, but I'm not on the liftoff point yet. But if I pay that cost, I get to stand my alien up, and now he or she is ready to go. And then you look over here and it tells you what the max number of aliens that can be on the liftoff point. So 6 total aliens can be here. And then you look up here and this is the cost to actually lift off. Once you lift off, you take all of the aliens and they go into their escape pods. That's the cost there. And then you look over here and it tells you how the phases of the moon will affect this liftoff point. For this particular one, you cannot launch on a new moon. You cannot launch on a half moon. That's not what it's called, but that's what's coming to my brain. You can only launch on a full moon. Other liftoff points do different things. For this ladder to the sky, there's a whole bunch of details here that I'm not going to go into. But the ladder, you can actually use liftoff on any phase of the moon. And as an example, here's another one that you can also lift off with the trampoline on any phase of the moon, but depending on how bright the moon is, that tells how likely you are to actually be able to lift off. This symbol here means you are actually rolling a die, so you'd pay a screw, and that allows you to roll the die, and depending on the phase of the moon you're in, you are trying to get a certain number of rockets. Anyhow, you get the idea, you see how that works. And clearly each different liftoff point has different requirements. They have different amount of aliens that can be on the liftoff point at any given time, different success ratios, and so on and so forth. Let's quickly go through a turn or two so you can kind of see how this goes. So if we're starting the game, I will set that there, and my blue aliens are going to go, and they're just going to come out. I'll take one of them, they'll come out to there, and then they will step right over here to the bonfire. That is my 2 movement actions. I could play any cards I wanted, but as we see, I only have resources here, so I'm not going to play anything. I'm not going to turn anything in, so I would end my turn by drawing 2 cards, and I've gotten another fuel, and I've gotten an action card. Now, there are many different action cards that you can get. They might move the moon, they might knock other aliens off a platform. There's tons of things that they can do. And I'm not going to go into all of them, but I'll explain 1 or 2 a little bit later. And then I would move the moon. Now, this is a good time to explain the phases of the moon. Because I already mentioned that some liftoff points, the phase of the moon actually makes a difference. So if you are, say, on the satellite liftoff point, and the moon is right above you, it's a full moon. If it is exactly opposite you, it is the new moon, and if it's anywhere else, it's in that semi-full moon phase. And that's how you determine that. Then we'd move to the next player, and the next player would get to do the same thing, and this one we'll say is going to send 1 up here and 1 up there, and just for kicks, we're going to have this player turn in 2 cards to draw 1, and that did not work out well for the blue aliens. Then we will go ahead and move the moon and draw our 2 cards to end the turn. And again, more resources. Now, you see how that works. I'm going to speed up, fast forward a little bit, put some aliens out there to kind of show you a little bit more of how this works. So here I've fast forwarded a little bit, and just a few things for you to note. There are 2 blue aliens already standing on the platform here, meaning that their player paid 2 screws for each one so they could stand up. And there's a 3rd one kind of chilling out here, ready to get up there, ready to go, assuming the blue player had 6 screws to launch them. Now, we'll assume it's the green player's turn, and we will assume that the green player does not want them to take a lead. So let's kind of go through the green player's turn of what they just might want to do. So the first thing that I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to have this alien here just move 1. It's one of my 2 action points. And then I will have this alien right here move 1 over to the rocket ship. Now I have 2 aliens here at the jetpack. And what we have is if I want someone to lift off, all I have to do is pay 1 fuel and I get to lift off. It's just that simple, but only 1 can go at a time. And I don't even have to pay to get them onto the platform. But if you look up here, you'll see that at a full moon, it's going to cost me 4 fuel. And it's progressively different at the other phases of the moon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this Move the Moon card. So I'll play that, and I'm just going to go ahead and move the moon 1 space that direction. And that actually advances the day. And if this Garglor here was running about, it would go back to the center of the core. Then the next thing that I'm going to do is I am going to play the Garglor card, which allows me to move the Garglor from here to any liftoff point I want. I'm going to send it right here to the satellite. What the Garglor does is it keeps you from lifting off from that point. Period. You can't do it as the Garglor is kind of running around smashing things. So the blue player will have to either play their own Garglor card or wait till the moon comes all the way back around to the star, at which time it will go back there. So that's why I would have sent the moon that way. Then I want to get these 2 aliens off the planet. And so to do that, I can play my cards. And so what I'm going to do is I need 3 fuels in order to do that. Well, unfortunately for me, I only have 2 fuel. So I'm going to take these other 2 cards here and I'm going to turn them in and see, and there we have it. I drew a fuel. So now I have 3 fuel. I'm going to turn those 3 in, and that allows me to launch one of my aliens off from the jetpack. Because it's a jetpack, I don't have to pay to make him stand on the platform, and he is free. Now I'm actually out of cards, so I will draw 2 cards to end my turn. And then now it would be other players' turn, and they can see what they can do to kind of save themselves here. Now, unfortunately for them, they don't have any way to move that Garglor. So what I would do in that case is first I will just go ahead and take my movement 1, 2. I'll send them that way towards the rocket ship, doesn't really matter. But I would really want to get off this planet. So as you see, I need 2 screws to stand up. I need 6 screws, which I don't have, to take off with the satellite. But maybe I can get them. So I'm going to take these 2 here, throw them away, and draw a card. So I got the other screw that I needed. So if we'll pretend the Garglor was not there, so now I could take 2 screws to make this alien stand up on the point, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more to allow these 3 aliens to lift off as the satellite manages to contact a passing ship. And so you see how this game works. Now it is worth noting that there are a whole bunch of other action cards that you can do. I've already said there's some that might knock you off the platform. This is the only one that I really want to make a point to show you. It's the Terraform card. So you can play this, and if there's no aliens on a liftoff point, you can literally take it off of the map and exchange it for another one. So maybe, oh, that's a blank one, but take it and I say, you know what, I don't think I want to do that. I think what I'm really interested in doing is I really want to slingshot off the planet. And then you see over here, depending on the phase of the moon, it costs something different to load yourself into the slingshot. And then you see over here the way it actually works. And then I would put that on there and we would continue the game. The game ends either when the planet explodes, in which case whoever has the most aliens off the planet is the winner, or when one player gets all of their aliens off the planet. Now, the only other thing that I do want and need to show you is how the solo mode works. It's actually quite simple. The game plays almost exactly the same, except each liftoff point starts with some damage on it. And as you play, there should be 2 on each, what you're doing is you are going to be given extra movement actions, so you can move more because you only have 1 day. And in addition to your movement actions, you'll have the ability to remove junk from each site based on, again, the phase of the moon. The exact details of that don't matter at this moment. The other thing is you are really dealing with the garglor. Because what's going to happen is there is this little meter here. And what this says is this is telling you which zones are going to be affected by the garglor card each turn. You're going to see the garglor card in just a second. But if it is here, any aliens here are affected, any aliens or liftoff points here, and any aliens or liftoff points over there would be affected. I will also say you cannot use a liftoff point until you have cleared all of the junk from the liftoff point. And then so each turn after the alien goes, the garglor would flip one of their cards. And so you'll see here, charge, return surface aliens to the core. So if I drew this now, this alien would come back to the core. Then at the end of the garglor's turn, it would rotate to the next exit point. And you simply go through like that for one day, hoping you get all of your aliens off. And you'll see there's a bunch of different cards here. And that is how the solo works. So that's the basics of this game. It's actually quite simple. So what do I like about this game? Well, the first thing is I really like the components of this game. Now, yes, again, this is just a prototype, but this is high quality stuff. And I also like the art. It is fun. It is whimsical. I really enjoy it. And to go along with that, with this fun, whimsical theme, I really enjoy all the ways you get off the planet. Do they make any sense? Most of them? No. Are they fun and silly? Absolutely. I really like it. But what I like most are these extraterrestrials, which is what I'm calling them. But they're adorable, and it's just a lovely, lovely thing to add to the game. I really enjoy that. So the next thing I'll say is I like the clean and simple mechanics of this game. This is a very simple game. I played it over a holiday recently with my 10-year-old niece, and she was able to follow pretty easily. She enjoyed it, and we didn't actually use the basic liftoff points we went through, and she kind of picked the ones she thought were the coolest looking, so we used some of the harder ones. And she was able to follow it. And it's not hard, and because it's not hard to play, it's actually quite a fast game to play. And to go along with that, yes, it is a simple game to play, and it's not hard to learn, but because there are so many different liftoff points, and each of them functions so differently, there's a lot of replay value before you play a game that's anything like one you've already played. There is so much there. I also like the variety of the cards here. I like that there's just 2 resources that you are dealing with, not a whole bunch. I like that there are just enough of these different action cards that do different things to keep the game particularly interesting without bogging the game down, because really I think there's maybe 10 different types of cards that you might be looking at or you might be dealing with. And I think that is really just the right number for me. And again, because there's just enough variety of cards and there is so much variety in liftoff points, it does lead each game to require you to come up with a strategy and try to execute it, because at the end of the day, you do not have enough time to try to use all these liftoff points. You have to get up there, you have to manage your hand of cards and figure out which one you're going to go for and hope another player does not mess you up. Speaking of another player messing you up, they've done something very cool with this game, and that is they have included rule sets for pretty much every style of family that you might have. Let's say you are a family that is conflict averse. Well, there's a version for that. It gives you actual rules that tells you what it is that you need to do to avoid having too much conflict, or really any conflict. And this version of the game doesn't even end until the planet blows up and you're encouraged to actually help each other. Well, you want to play teams? There's a version for that. You want to do a really short game? There's a version for that. You want to make sure the other person doesn't get off the planet? There's a version for that. Want to play by yourself? I've already told you, there's a version for that. So they've really thought this through, which leads to really the real strength of this game is it is a good, solid family game. This is a game to sit down with the whole family and play over an hour, 90 minutes after dinner or on the weekend or something like that. I think it really does fill that niche in a way that can be fun for someone who's got more of a strategic mind and a kid who just wants to play with the little aliens and run around. So let's talk about my quibbles with the game. And the first one that I will say is there is a risk that you can fall into with this game of thinking it is something that it is not. Because there is so much variety, because there are so many of these different lift-off points that you can use, because there are so many different variants that are there and so much strategy that you can put into the game, you might fall into the trap of thinking this is a heavy game, and it's not. This is a light family game. That is what it is intended to be, and that is what it is. So you just have to be careful that you don't kind of fall into that trap. And then the other thing that I'll add, and this is the minorest of quibbles and only relates to the version I have, it might not be like this. While I like the idea of the terraforming card, in practice I find it to be kind of annoying. Yes, it's set up where you can't use it unless there's nobody on the liftoff point, but I just feel like it really breaks the flow to go and take it. You gotta kind of pull it off, move it over, get something else, bring it back, and then stick it back down. I don't know. It just seems to kind of slow the game down. When my wife and I were playing, we just took those cards out, mainly because we didn't really feel like dealing with it. And that, as I said, that is the true definition of a quibble. And the other thing that I'll toss out is I love a game with a solo mode. If for no other reason than it allows me to much more quickly to get reviews and previews turned around and to figure the game out so I can teach people when I'm ready to play with them. And while I love the idea of the solo mode and these cards and the way it works, I find it to be punishingly hard. I have not done well when I've played the game. And that very well could be that I'm just not very good at the game. That's certainly possible. And I will also say that that's not necessarily a bad thing. I know there are a lot of people out there who want in their solo games, their co-op games, for it to be hard. And so, again, it's a quibble because that might be what you want, and really at the end of the day, it's just something that I think you should be aware of. And I will also say it's definitely possible that the rules and the setup for the solo mode may change between now and the Kickstarter delivery. So keep that in mind. So there you have it, folks. That is Liftoff, Get Me Off This Planet, the expanded deluxe edition from Pencil First Games. I think this is a really adorable, solid family game. I think it does accomplish what it sets out to do. I think the theme is nailed right on. The premise is ridiculous. So they've kind of leaned into that with all these ridiculous ways to get off the planet. Oh, we're going to take a geyser and launch ourselves off the planet. Or we're just going to bounce on off with a trampoline. Or maybe we're going to take a UFO, or that's a create your own there. Or you know what? We're just going to wait for a miracle. Or take the TARDIS. Excuse me. Police box, don't say TARDIS. And so I think the theme is nailed. The art is adorable. And I think all of that really might be what a lot of you are looking for. All in all, I think this is definitely, if you are looking for a light game with a fun, wacky theme, this is something that you must look at on Kickstarter. So give it a look if you're looking for this fun, whimsical space family game. So there you have it, folks. That is Liftoff, Get Me Off This Planet. If I made any mistakes and you are familiar with the first edition or you've played this one, let me know in the comments with a timestamp so I can get that into the Klingon subtitles. If you found this video useful, please like, subscribe, share. As always, thank you so very much for watching. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.